exactly. All right. All right. Thank you for your understanding for this delay. As you know, we had some pretty unpleasant news coming from Lebanon, where another one of our UN peacekeepers was killed. Sergeant Milovan Jovanović of Serbia's 27th Mechanized Battalion died early this morning from critical injuries sustained when a mortar shell hit his position near Marjayoun in southern Lebanon. The Secretary General condemns the killing of our peacekeeping colleague. He expresses his deepest condolences to the families, to the friends and colleagues of the peacekeeper who died, and to the government and people of Serbia. Sergeant Milovan Jovanović would have turned 37 on June 6th. He was a son, he was a husband, and a father to a son and daughter. This was his first peacekeeping deployment. He arrived in Lebanon at the end of January of this year, and he died while fulfilling his duty in the service of peace and the blue flag of the United Nations. We are committed to supporting diplomatic efforts. Excuse me. Meanwhile, despite all of this, our UNIFIL colleagues continue to monitor the situation in the south of the country and carry out their mandated tasks despite the ongoing challenging security environment. Yesterday, UNIFIL detected 69 violations of Lebanese airspace across both sectors. Peacekeepers reported approximately 25 airstrikes by IDF jets and 2 rocket attacks by an IDF helicopter. Additionally, peacekeepers reported approximately 569 trajectories of projectiles fired from IDF positions south of the Blue Line and within the mission's area of operations. Further 14 launches were detected from north to south, presumably by Hezbollah, including one crossing the Blue Line. Separately, 2 UNIFIL positions near Blat in Sector East were struck by munitions ricochet, causing property damage. Sorry, I'm a little messed up in my pages here. Just going back to the actual incident and give you a little bit more detail. Sorry. Yes, exactly. Thank you. Thank you very much. I think my colleagues will bring me more as my missing page. There we go. Sorry, my bad. Just going back to the incident that killed our colleague Sergeant Jovanović. 2 of his colleagues during the same incident, one from El Salvador and one from Spain, were also injured. They are reported in stable condition and are receiving care. We, of course, wish them a speedy recovery. Since March, 7 peacekeepers serving with UNIFIL have now been killed following the escalation of hostilities, and several more have been wounded. We reiterate that attacks on peacekeepers must stop. They are grave violations of international humanitarian law and of Security Council Resolution 1701. And as we've been saying, these killings may amount to war crimes. UNIFIL has issued a full statement on the incident and what happened, and they will investigate the incident thoroughly. However, based on an initial assessment from UNIFIL observation posts, we understand that the position was struck by indirect fire coming from north of the Litani River. As soon as we have more information, we will share that with you. Those responsible must be held to account. All must respect international law and protect those serving in the cause of peace. The Secretary General again urges all actors to respect the cessation of hostilities that was announced on April 16. The UN is committed to supporting the diplomatic efforts towards an extension of the cessation of hostilities and the full implementation of Resolution 1701. This tragic news comes at a time when here at UN headquarters tomorrow and this week we've been holding a series of events to mark the International Day of United Nations Peacekeepers. This honors peacekeepers past and present and reaffirms our shared responsibility to strengthen their work. Jean-Pierre Lacroix will be our guest tomorrow on the occasion of International Peacekeepers Day. And he'll be our guest at noon at the briefing, and he will start on time. And also tomorrow morning, there will be a solemn events to honor the more than 4,500 peacekeepers who've lost their lives in the cause of peace, including 59 in 2025. The loss of Sergeant Jovanović today is a stark reminder of the risks peacekeepers take every day to serve communities and help preserve peace around the world. Also wanted to flag in Lebanon that attacks on healthcare are continuing at an alarming rate. Yesterday, a strike in South Gouverneur hit an ambulance, killing 2 paramedics and leaving a 3rd critically injured. Medical personnel, first responders in their facilities and assets must be protected. We and our partners continue to deliver urgent humanitarian assistance. To date, more than 684,000 people have received at least one round of emergency cash assistance, helping to cover basic food, water, and other essential needs. However, as the escalation has entered its 4th month, including funding shortfalls are imperiling our support of the most vulnerable people. And as I told you, as I've told you before, tomorrow in Beirut, our humanitarian colleague, the head of the UN's humanitarian operations in Lebanon, Imran Riza, will join the Prime Minister of Lebanon to launch an extended flash appeal to mobilize resources to continue providing life-saving assistance over the next 3 months. We reiterate our call for the protection of civilians, including humanitarian and medical personnel, full respect for international humanitarian law, and safe and sustained and unimpeded access for humanitarian workers wherever they are needed. Meanwhile, on the diplomatic front, we have seen the announcement issued out of Washington yesterday on Lebanon and Israel, and I can tell you that we welcome the announcement of a ceasefire following the 4th high-level trilateral meeting between Israeli and Lebanese representatives on the 2nd and 3rd of June that took place in Washington. We reaffirm our support for efforts to end hostilities and urge all parties to respect the ceasefire, cease all attacks, and comply with international law at all times. We are committed to supporting all diplomatic efforts in reinforcing the cessation of hostilities and the full implementation of Security Council 1701. Turning to the occupied Palestinian territory, our OCHA colleagues warn that funding shortfalls are forcing humanitarian partners in Gaza to scale down or suspend critical services. Nearly halfway through the year, the $4.1 billion requirements identified for this year's appeal for Gaza and the West Bank remains less than 15% funded. As a result, humanitarian partners' ability to plan, to preposition relief, and respond effectively is weakening at a time when most Gazans, 2.1 million people, remain displaced and are heavily relying on our services. To give some examples, by the end of last month, 4 humanitarian partners were forced to start phasing out the trucking of water in Gaza, leaving more than 330,000 people across some 250 sites at risk of losing their primary source of drinking water. Already, UNICEF warns that water shortages force families into a trade-off between drinking and maintaining hygiene to prevent disease. The number of meals provided is also being reduced. As of last week, over 20 partners providing 678,000 meals every day which is down from 1.5 million in mid-March. Other affected services include support for agricultural recovery, site management, education, and the reopening of safe space for women and girls. More services will be suspended without further funding. We call upon donors to urgently increase their support. Member states are equally urged to press for the lifting of Israeli restrictions that continue impeding our work on the ground. And just to turn to the West Bank, our OCHA colleagues report that 27 hurting families were recently forced out of their residential area near the Ein Fera water spring in Hebron following systematic harassment and intimidation inflicted by Israeli settlers that had taken over a nearby hilltop. The community, comprised of 125 people, including 3 people with disabilities and more than 20 with chronic illnesses. This is the 46th Palestinian community that has been displaced in full since 2023 due to settler violence and related access restrictions. Overall, more than 6,000 people have been displaced in this context since January of 2023, including more than 2,000 since the beginning of 2026. Turning to Somalia, I can tell you that the Secretary General is alarmed about the reports of violence in Mogadishu. He underscores the urgent need for all stakeholders to resume talks to identify a way forward, to avoid reversing the progress seen in Somalia to date, as well as ensuring the protection of civilians and civilian infrastructure. The Secretary General calls on all parties to exercise utmost restraint, refrain from any action that could incite further violence, and resolve political differences through dialogue. Our colleagues at the UN Transitional Assistance Mission in Somalia today noted that the mission and international partners have repeatedly warned in their statements and stakeholders' engagements of the risk of repeating the crisis that arose in 2021 over differences regarding the electoral roadmap, warnings that unfortunately, obviously, were not heeded. The UN mission urges all Somali leaders to prioritize the national interest of the Somali people and resume the talks that ended on 15th May. Somali international partners stand ready to facilitate such a dialogue. And back here this morning, the Security Council was briefed on the implementation of Resolution 2118 concerning the elimination of the chemical weapons program in Syria. The High Representative for Disarmament, Izumi Nakamitsu, told Council members that significant progress had been made recently. She explained at the beginning of May of this year, a team from the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons Office was deployed to Syria and was able to state a significant amount of undeclared chemical weapons, related materials, and documentations were discovered in the country. These findings are a momentous discovery, she said, not just for Syria, but international security and the global disarmament regime. The latest weapons found in May of this year have been transferred to a secure location, and consultations on destruction plans are ongoing between Syria and the OPCW. An update for you on our Ebola response. In the Democratic Republic of the Congo, support for national health authorities includes case management, the operation of Ebola treatment centers, as well as the delivery of essential medicines and medical supplies. Our colleagues are also supporting community engagements and strengthened surveillance efforts to help prevent further spread of the virus. According to the Congolese authorities, the province of Ituri remains the epicenter of the outbreak, accounting for more than 90% of cases. But as we've mentioned, cases were also recorded in North and South Kivu. We and our partners face challenges in responding to Ebola, given the location of where the outbreak is in the eastern part of the DRC. Attacks against frontline workers, particularly during safe and dignified burial operations, are hindering the response, while persistent misinformation, rumors, and mistrust are undermining the effectiveness of the implementation of much-needed public health measures. We remain engaged with the authorities and our partners on the ground to address these challenges and to support efforts to bring the outbreak under control as quickly as possible. In Uganda, our team continues to support government-led efforts to respond to the Ebola outbreak under the leadership of the resident coordinator, Leonardo Zulu, and with WHO leading the technical health response. We and our partners are supporting national authorities to contain the outbreak and prevent further spread. The Ministry of Health, along with WHO, is leading the contact tracing, surveillance, public awareness campaigns, and infection and control measures. UNICEF is supporting risk communications and community engagement. Meanwhile, IOM are supporting point-of-entry screening, case management, and community surveillance. And UNHCR is supporting surveillance and decongestion efforts in refugee and transit reception centers. Uganda has expanded screening at 31 priority points of entry, including Entebbe International Airport. Authorities have also activated rapid response teams, deployed mobile labs, and strengthened screening and monitoring, particularly for international travel and cross-border movement. Uganda's Ebola coordination structure remains fully operational and continues to support a national effort. And a quick update from Cuba, where our humanitarian colleagues tell us the combined impact of the energy crisis following the U.S. executive orders and other sanctions alongside hurricanes and other natural disasters is far-reaching and expanding daily. All basic services, from clean water and sanitation to food production and the health sector, have been impacted by the lack of fuel and electricity. More than 100,000 surgeries have been postponed due to a deep shortage of medicines and needed medical supplies. We, along with our partners, have a plan of action to assist up to 2 million people, but the energy crisis is also limiting our ability to deliver the aid already committed, with dozens of containers of food and medical supplies still sitting in ports due to lack of fuel to get them out of the ports. This afternoon, our resident coordinator, Francisco Pinchon, and OCHA's Crisis Response Director, Edem Worsornu, and the permanent representative of Cuba will address member states on the deteriorating humanitarian situation in the country. At the briefing, we expect to reiterate the Secretary General's call on member states to facilitate the timely and unimpeded delivery of humanitarian for fuel for humanitarian purposes and other life-saving aid to fund the plan of action. The $82 million plan of action is only 21% funded. That event will be on UN Web TV. Just want to flag a new report by WFP called Food Security Under Pressure. Looks at how rising tensions in the Middle East in recent months are affecting people's ability to afford food, especially in vulnerable countries. It focuses on Afghanistan, Somalia, and Sri Lanka to show how global problems can quickly affect everyday lives. WFP says the crisis is pushing up fuel and food prices, disrupting supply chains, and reducing incomes. In the 3 countries that were studied, millions of additional people are at risk of food insecurity. Even those who were previously managing are now struggling. And lastly, today is the International Day of Innocent Children Victims of Aggression. It is a reminder of the devastating impact that conflict and violence have on children around the world. The day calls upon us to stand up for every child's right to safety, protection, and dignity. Edie, then Gabriel, then Benny, and then...
Thank you, Steph. I heard what you had to say about the Lebanon ceasefire, but specifically, does the Secretary General have any reaction to Hezbollah rejecting the renewed ceasefire by Israel and Lebanon?
I think it's important for all parties in Lebanon, including Hezbollah, not only to respect the ceasefire, but to respect the authority of the Lebanese government to be the sole holder, should we say, of weapons throughout its territory. Gabriel.
Thanks, Steph. Just to follow up about the briefing on Cuba this afternoon. You said briefing member states. I'm sorry, I missed that. Where is that?
It'll be somewhere in the building. It'll be on Web TV, so probably around 3 o'clock. We're also trying to get the resident coordinator to come and brief you at some point.
Great.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay. Benny.
So, the IDF says clearly that the UNIFIL incident was a shooting from Hezbollah. You just said north of the Litani River.
Coming from north to south. That was what...
So does that mean Hezbollah? I understand the euphemism. I'm just
asking. I'm not trying... Benny, I'm just trying to say, this is what UNIFIL was able to track. This just happened. They're obviously focusing right now on helping the wounded. A full investigation will be done, and as soon as other information comes forward, we will share that with you.
And to go back to my beef that I've been talking about for a while now with you, what is UNIFIL doing there exactly? I mean, I saw that they counted every airplane, every this, and mostly of IDF, undercounted Hezbollah, by the way. What are they doing there? Why are they
there under the mandate of the Security Council to fulfill their mandate, which is to observe, which is important.
Correct.
They're also there, and they had been doing this, I would say, quite effectively prior to the latest flare-up. of assisting the Lebanese armed forces into assuming its full responsibility. If you'll remember, because I'm sure you were paying attention, that we were, before reporting on the daily rockets and projectiles and air violations, we were also reporting almost daily on the weapons caches that our UNIFIL colleagues were finding and handing over to the LAF, or were helping the LAF. They're also doing protection of civilians. We've been helping move humanitarian goods into places where they are needed, and helping the people that have remained behind. As you also well know, the Security Council decided to wind down the mission, which will be done in December, and the Secretary General has proposed a number of options for what a presence may look like after UNIFIL. We will leave it to the wisdom of the members of the Security Council to make a decision on that.
So to follow up on that, if they're that effective, why did the Security Council decide to wind down its operations?
You will have to ask every single Security Council member that voted to end the mission. We've always believed that UNIFIL was a source of stability, and that if they were not there, that the situation would be even worse along that area.
They're a cannon fodder right now.
Benny, I have my opinion. I presented yours. I mean, you present yours. This is not a debate. Islam, then Yvonne.
Thank you, Stéphane. Permanent representative of Russian brought this topic up again today at the Security Council stakeout. So I know you have been asked about it last week, but I would like to follow up. Israeli officials stated that they had cut ties with the Secretary General because of UN placed Israel on its sexual violence blacklist. Now, in the light of the situation in Gaza, attacks on Iran, and the latest development in Lebanon, I am wondering whether there has been any contact between Secretary General and high-level Israeli officials in past years, or even in months?
Let's be honest, there have not been a ton of contact between the Secretary General and senior Israeli officials. It's not that is just a fact. It's not because of the Secretary General's own actions. We've remained in contact with the Israeli mission at various levels here, and as you know, our colleagues on the ground in the region, whether it's Janine Hennis-Plasschaert, whether it's General Abanyara, the head of UNIFIL, are almost in daily contact with Israeli counterparts, as are our humanitarian and agency colleagues on the ground.
And if I may ask another question, a few days ago, the United Kingdom banned two U.S. political commentators, Cenk Uygur and Hasan Piker, from entering the country, claiming that their presence would not be conducive to the public good. Uygur and Piker, both U.S. citizens, argued that the ban was due to their criticism of Israel. In terms of the freedom of speech, what is the Secretary General's view on the fact that a permanent member of the Security Council is banning two private individuals over what they describe as a support for Palestine?
We firmly believe in the freedom of people to be able to express themselves freely, whether they be a journalist, politician, or anything. But every country also has a right to control its own borders. Yvonne Murray.
Thank you. So on UNIFIL, 7 peacekeepers have been killed since March, as you mentioned. And you've said this preliminary investigation has taken place in this latest incident. But have we received conclusions from the previous investigations into all the other peacekeepers that have been killed?
I will double check. I don't believe we have final investigation reports into a number of those incidents, but I will check where we are on this.
So does that mean that it takes quite a long time for us to know who's responsible for
we
this
have,
attack?
I mean, in certain cases, in recent cases, we've been able to identify, and we announced it from here, because of shell fragments or trajectory fragments. But it does take a little bit of time, given that we are conducting operations in what is an active conflict zone.
And given that it's an active conflict zone, at what point does it become untenable for UNIFIL to remain in position?
Look, these are decisions taken almost daily. And years go by too fast for me, but I think in the past 2 years, when the fighting was even more intense, decisions were made to keep a number of positions filled. When the Secretary General was in Lebanon about 2 years ago, we visited, I think it was an Italian position that was kind of the southernmost. They explained to us what they had what they had sustained while staying there. Had they left at the time, I think it's pretty clear to everyone that they would not have been able to come back. As I told Benny, or as I tried to explain to Benny, we feel that their presence is very important. It is also important for the civilians who have remained behind in southern Lebanon. Alex, oh, sorry, did you have
I have a separate question, but on a different topic. So do you want
Please,
to
go ahead, since you have the microphone.
So today is the anniversary of the Tiananmen Square crackdown in 1989, on which the Chinese army fired on student protesters, killing hundreds, if not thousands. Does the Secretary General have any message on this anniversary?
Look, as I said, we've always believed that everyone has a right to protest peacefully and should be protected. Alex, is this a postal question?
No.
No, okay.
Thanks, Steph. I got a couple questions. Firstly, on UNIFIL as well. How long do you expect the investigation to take?
You can't. I can't put in. I can't put a
And for
time
the last
frame.
incident, it was a month, and
I think you will remember more than me, but on a number of instances where we've been able to say conclusively or near conclusively, we've shared that information with you and we shared it publicly.
all right, thanks. On completely different topic, Russia's Nebenza told us earlier today that when Russia invites UN officials to Luhansk, Donetsk, other regions, they refuse, citing Ukrainian territorial integrity and that you guys have to go through the cross-border. So could you please remind us the process if Russia invites you to that region?
Well, we believe in the territorial integrity of every country, including Ukraine, and the respect of those of that territorial integrity and those internationally defined borders.
So if it's Donetsk, you have to go through Ukraine.
We've had very little access for humanitarian workers to those Russian occupied areas. Dennis.
If not Alex, I would ask the postal question. So, Ambassador Ibanez told that Russia hadn't received the letter with reply. So, do you have any timeline, and when do you plan to send a reply?
Rarely has a letter been followed as closely as this one by myself in my office. It is making its way, and I have no doubt will be dispatched soon. Ms. Lederer.
Thank you, Steph. I just looked on the Malu schedule, and there is nothing remotely regarding any kind of a Cuba event this afternoon. Can you please send us information on the event and where it is being held and the time?
With great pleasure, ma'am. Let's go to Abu Sufyan.
Thank you, Steph. Hundreds of people are waiting in zero line between Bangladesh and India border. India government pushing Muslim people forcibly to Bangladesh. The current government violating the Vienna Convention. Does UN Secretary General aware of it, and what's his position on that?
I will get back to you on that. I have not been following this particular incident closely enough, but I will revert back to you. Islam.
Thank you, Stéphane. Just to follow up Alex's question, if United Nations officials don't go to Ukraine stating that this is under occupation, what about the Middle East? Is the same case, or what are the
Well,
differences?
if you'll recall, in previous years, when we were trying to access areas not controlled by the government in Damascus, in northern Syria, we did have cross-border, but that required Security Council approval.
What about Israel, Palestine, and Lebanon?
Well, we access Lebanon through Lebanon, and we access the occupied territory. But accessing that is recognized as occupied territory. I don't really see a similarity there. Okay. On that note, I could wish you a great weekend, but I'll do that tomorrow.